Can't hear you.
Welcome back. Is that better? Cool. Well, thanks, Lou. Welcome back. Lou, you sent us a bit of a message and just wondered if you'd be prepared just to talk a bit about that.
Yeah, it was, I think, just a reflection for me in when you were talking before. And so Alicia, I can't remember her name, when she asked the question about...
Aaliyah,
yeah, when she asked about anger. And it really gave me a moment of reflection on my own sort of entry, if you like, into this understanding. And for me, I came across this understanding and had an insight in how it massively impacted my business. And I was like, yeah, this is great. But I couldn't see how it related to other things in life. I think you talked yesterday about how you're like, oh, we can look at, oh, I can see it for this, but I can't see it for that. And I was very much stuck in that space. And so on the surface, I was coaching and helping people create change in their business in different areas of their life. But behind the scenes, like, we were stuck in a massive toxic cycle, if you like, within our relationship. And I had got to the point where I felt so much shame, self-judgment, fear, and everything else mixed in between, because I had spent years of my life studying tools and techniques and helping people create change in their behavior. And yet in the background, we'd gone through a period of time in our relationship that was so chaotic, to the point where I was so lost, and almost felt like I was living two separate lives, because I had this one life that looked really successful over here, but then this other life behind the scenes where I was a mess, and we were a mess. And I remember spending I would spend hours and hours a day trying to journal and fix and use all these tools to like fix myself and to fix Lee. And I was so fixated on, you said you didn't mind me sharing, but we would have periods of time where you would absolutely lose your shit, like uncontrollably, completely destroy everything in sight. And I was like, for days on it. For days and days and days. And I was having to kind of pull myself together to go and sort of do my work, and everything was just becoming destroyed. And I couldn't understand, why was he doing this to me? Why was I stuck in this cycle? Why, with everything that I know, why couldn't I change it? Why couldn't I fix him? Why was this behavior happening? And I remember seeing one of your YouTube videos, Dave. It was when you talked about the story that you shared earlier of how angry, the anger and what it led to. And for the first time ever, I was like, oh wow, this is like, Dave can fix Lee. Like, he's exactly Lee. I need to, Dave's going to be the one that's going to sort him out. And I sent you the video, didn't I? And you were like, I can so relate to what he was saying. And that feels like, you said it felt like you, where you would just have these uncontrollable bursts that just came out of nowhere, and you'd just go on a rampage. And
it was just born out of frustration, I think, a lot of it. And when I look back, it was just total misunderstanding. Like, I could go through every room in my house and see areas of damage that I had just caused through like a hurricane walking through the house. I lived with a broken hand for probably 18 months. Yeah. Continuously, when it was just on the road to recovery, I'd do something stupid, I'd hit something, I'd smash things, and I just continuously had a broken hand. And it's just silly to look back on, to think of the harm I've caused myself and Lou and others around me purely by misunderstanding and acting on the emotions I was feeling. Yeah. Where now, don't get me wrong, I can still, probably most days in reality, have these feelings where historically I would act. Yeah. But now I see them for what they are.
I think the interesting thing was, we were like, when I reached out to you guys and we came and did the intensive, and spent, I think it was three days with you, and I said to Lee, it's funny because I even experienced a little bit yesterday, and I've been we've obviously been learning with you guys for a while now, but I remember the first day I was in so much resistance, and I was so desperate for you guys just to listen to the problem, like, but he does this and he does that, and I remember, Dave, you wrote a list, and I think that, you know, you were like, well, let's put that to one side. And I remember getting so frustrated because I was like, yeah, but you need to just listen to what he does. You need to listen to where we're at. And then I think by the second day, it was like, I just heard something completely different. And we went for lunch in a little place near you guys. And I remember just crying of like, oh my God, I cannot believe how we've been living. And I used to think that, I knew I was responsible in creating some of it, but I couldn't see what was happening. And listening to you talk earlier, just reflecting on that period for years as to why that happened. And it was almost like clockwork. You'd explode, and for days we would be living in chaos and turmoil, and it felt horrendous. And then time would go by, and I'd be fixated on, what do I need to do to change it? What do I need to do to fix him? What do I need to do to fix me? But the guilt and shame and embarrassment that I felt living like that was like, it got me to the point where I just couldn't, like, I didn't know how to cope. I didn't know where to turn and what to do. But slowly we'd start to, like, it would be all right, because I'd get to the point where I'm like, I can't deal with this anymore. I just need to forget about it. And I'd forget about it. And then we'd have a really good day. But then in my mind, I'd be like, but I can't let myself go there, because I need to remember what he does, and I need to remember how he is. And then I'd start withdrawing, and he'd be like, what's going on? What's happening? And then he'd completely lose his shit again. And, you know, we were so stuck in this chaotic cycle that literally every couple of weeks, like clockwork, it was predictable and it would happen. And I think that, you know, I didn't realize at the time that I was focused so much on the behavior, so much on trying to fix him, and thinking there was so much wrong with me, because why was I in this situation? Why was I living this with everything that I knew and with everything that I taught? And I felt it was horrendous. But I think what happened, being, you know, having that experience with you guys, I think it was on the third day, I saw so much, and you did as well, that it was that deeper layer of understanding why that was being experienced, and why that was happening, and how it works, and where it was coming from, that we came back. And I can honestly say that so much changed in every single area of our life. And it was like, the interesting thing was, we didn't do anything to change it. It was having that understanding allowed me to see the innocence in myself and the innocence in what Lee was doing. And it was almost like you just didn't, and genuinely, like, it's a couple of years ago now, but to this day, you've not, I mean, sometimes we have an argument and you shout, and, you know, but you've not,
like doors and walls.
yeah, and it will be like an argument, and then it's done, and you don't really get angry anymore. And I think, like, sorry.
No, I'm just really curious. I'm so sorry. I just interrupted you because it just, Lee, I want to ask you something. What was it that you saw for yourself? I'm really curious about that, because I when I talked about anger, it sort of developed 3 years ago for me, and it's and I don't know what it was. So my habit is sort of like smashing things as well. I just go, I don't know. It just, I've been married for 20 years nearly, and suddenly 3 years ago, out of the blue, something just happened, and I suddenly started smashing like all my cutlery, and they were good. It was good crockery, mate. Good crockery. Like now, I literally don't want any crockery.
Are you Greek?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. No, but I mean, listen, it's not good. It isn't, and it is. It's the shouting. It's the, and I don't even realise what happens. Literally, it'll just be like a defence mechanism. I feel like it's a defense. I'm so ashamed to say this. I'm just going to come on camera because I just feel like I need to really reach out here, and I'm just going to take full advantage of all you lot. And I'm so sorry, Lou, because you were really in your flow right there. But here we go. So what happened for me was, hi.
Don't hide that.
This is not recorded. I hope it's not, because yeah. So what happened for me was literally 3 years ago. For some reason, I became so angry. And I've been living in this guilt. I had it all. Had the husband, the kids. And I literally went from smart and sassy, I'd like to say, right, to crazy and erratic, which doesn't rhyme, but still. And literally, I just living in my thinking. And it became such a habit in my subconscious. Like, I wasn't even aware that I would get angry. I wasn't even aware that I was defensive over anything. And I literally just couldn't believe who it was. And it took me 3-4 weeks, like what Lou was saying, to get over the guilt and the shame of this outburst. And then I'd have like this few hours of just like, oh, I'm back. And then it happened again. And I'd be like, huh? Kind of thing. And then it'd be like, well, hold a second. But it's literally been a nightmare, because the guilt and the turmoil I'm in, literally that lost place. My husband's moved out. He's taken my kids with him, because it's serious. I'm jokey about it and jovial about it, or trying to put on the fake facade. But it is a problem, because I recognize the bullshit after it's happened. And it's literally, it will be something. And I was like, how do you go from being kind of able to hold yourself, speak your truth, have boundaries, to suddenly feeling threatened by everything that's going on around you?
I think we both, like, for us, that was the moment of, I mean, you can obviously speak to you, but we lived that cycle. You know, I'd moved out, got different houses. It was so much chaos, but because afterwards for me, I couldn't let it go, because in order to protect myself, I had to, you know, I would like literally lock myself in the bathroom for hours while he went through the house like a tornado, and then go through days of complete and utter harassment. And it becomes such a, for me, my protection was get out, run, tell him you're leaving, that's it, escape. And that would just
and I was the opposite. I would
make things worse.
Do something.
I'm interested. Yeah, I'm intrigued by the way that how you forgave yourself, how you overcame that part of yourself, Lee, and how you managed to transition. I mean, we don't. It's a thought. It's an understanding. Sometimes it's so we don't realize it when we the insight comes, and like, you know, and you think, oh, and it's just gone, and suddenly it's not something you do consciously or unconsciously. It's just a new way of being, because you have transformed and transcended something that was.
It happened overnight.
Just as I became angry all of a sudden, I'd gone from calm and collected to suddenly angry, and I was just like, well, where did the insight to become angry come from? You know.
I think.
So I hope you're not angry.
Can I just ask one question?
Yeah.
Is there anybody on this call who has never gone from calm to angry?
Habitually.
Is there anybody on this call who's never experienced anger? If there is, please speak up, because I need to learn from you.
Anger is fine. It's an emotion. But what I'm talking is, you're a woman who's got, you know, your family with you. You've suddenly gone from mum of these amazing children, you know, doing great school, you know, being like having this almost this full self of having this life. And then suddenly you've just gone from that to like nothing that's going on in the house, but just
Lee,
the emotion.
What was it that, can you talk a bit about what you experienced?
Yeah, certainly. So I was just an angry person in general, I think, and certain things that I was looking for from Louise that I didn't feel I was getting, I would go from 0 to 100 in seconds. And then seeing her back off, lose interest, so to speak, become detached, it would then make me even worse. And I would then take that next step into the anger cycle and start smashing things. That would then just make things worse. And it was simply to the point where, you know, either I was just going to ruin everything and lose everything and just fall apart really, or the intensity with Dave and Jen really. And it's so simple, but it's so powerful in the fact that, you know, I'm really interested to see what Paul feels after tomorrow, because, you know, I can certainly resonate with a lot of things that Paul was saying yesterday and this morning, but it really is so simple. And you'll certainly get to a point where you're sick of paying for new cutlery and cups and walls. Repairing walls. I spent so much money on damaging stuff and getting it repaired, and you just look back on it and think, it's just, you know, it's not silly in the moment, but when you look back on it, you know, you certainly can not choose, because you do, when you look back on things, you do choose to go one way or another.
But you couldn't in that moment, could you?
No, but
it is a choice. It's a choice that we make.
Yeah, so I can feel myself, you know, getting irate and hit up. And, you know, for a perfect example, there was an incident we had just the other week where, and Beige, you'll laugh at this, Ryan flooded the bathroom, okay, because he ran a bath, he went back to his Xbox, and then 45 minutes later, when there was water coming through the ceilings to downstairs and having dripped on Lou's head as she was working away, I would have historically lost my shit, probably gone up there, ripped the bath out and threw the taps out the window or something daft like that. But, you know, it is what it is. He went back, he got, you know, stuck into something else and forgot about the bath, simple as that. And all that has really in reality done is left a bit of a stain on the ceiling, you know. But I recognise that now, where historically I wouldn't. And it's just, as you're sort of feeling hit up and getting frustrated, you know, just taking a step back.
I think as well, you said, I remember we were discussing sort of on, you know, after that we'd come and done the intensive with you guys, and I think a couple of the things that I remember you saying to me, that you were so angry because you were constantly in judgment of yourself. Like, even after this stuff had happened, like you lived in self-judgment, I lived in shame and fear and embarrassment. And even when things are good, it was like when we'd fall out of that and drop into the moment, it was like, oh no, hang on, I need to remember, we can't do that, we can't be happy. And the other thing I remember you saying very much, that you recognized that you were looking for security and happiness from me. And I remember you guys saying on the day that it was that recognition that none of that comes from outside of you, that you don't need me in order to be secure, and that you were angry because when it looked like I wasn't giving you what you need, or when it looked like I was retreating, that would promote anger in you, because to you it looked like the stuff that you needed came from somewhere outside of you, as in me.
I think
I was, you know, the same. And it was this understanding, seeing it, that was what instantly then changed everything else. The behaviour and everything changes.
Lou and Lee, was there anything specifically that you did to change?
No.
Right. I want to make that word there, no. Okay. Was there anything that you did to change? No. Just one sec, Lee. Just one sec, mate. I want to make this a really specific point. Lee and Lou both answered at exactly the same time when asked. To bring about that change in your life, was there anything that you did? Just reflect on that for one moment. For people, human beings who are so used to doing everything, what did you do? Are we frozen?
No, you're not frozen.
We're back. Good. Because this is a fundamental point about what we're talking about. There is nothing to do. So when we listen to this, I ask again, anybody who has got a specific problem that they're wanting to find help and solution from, please put it to one side, just listen. That's anything, any problem. Oh, but my problem's big. Yeah, everybody's problem's big. It appears big to them. So when we're talking about this, again, I'm going to reiterate this point. Please don't listen for a solution to your problem. Please just listen to what's been spoken about. Because when the change comes about, you will realize you never actually had to do anything. You will do nothing. And it's in the doing nothing where all the power lies. At the moment, we're caught up in our ego. We're caught up in the little me. The idea of self, who has to bring about change in self. The idea of self is an illusion, trying to bring around a change in an illusion. It's impossible. It doesn't exist. This is why the world is as it sits right now, which is absolutely perfect, by the way. It can't be any other way, but it's not very in line with truth. It's not very in line with cooperation. It's not very in line with totality and wholeness and love. So the only way that we can bring about change is the moment we let go. Oh, I've got to let go now. So now we try to let go. Now the ego's trying to let go. No, the ego can't let go. The ego cannot let go. Lee, what did you want to say, mate?
I was just then going to say that was one of the key things as well, that just by forgiving yourself, if you do relapse or have silly thoughts again, you know, and I keep saying silly because when I look back on myself, it makes me feel silly. You know, just forgive yourself. That's all you have to do. Just don't act on it. You know, it's okay to feel down, shitty, and you know, miserable and hating the world for an hour. You can do that. That's perfectly fine. You know, but also as well, don't, when it comes to relationships, try not to force things as much. You know,
no.
Don't change each other.
It all comes. This, you know, this. Thank you so much for sharing that, both of you. You know, it's been so beautiful to get to know you two and watch you two evolve. And we've seen your hard times, and it's so beautiful to see you still together. Because I know at times it's been touch and go. But this is the thing, you see. We get so lost. We get really, really lost. This next section was actually, or still is called "The True Freedom Lies Within." That's the next section that we're talking about now. The true freedom lies within. It's quite interesting, Lou, you mentioned about we wrote down all the problems. I remember when Jen and I went and worked in a township, in a charity in a township just outside of Kailicha in Cape Town. This was a different group to the ones that came, and this was another time we went back to this charity. I remember there was about 30 people in this room this time. 20, 30 people. I was really frigging nervous. I was like, right, say something. So I stood up and said, okay, do you want to tell me all the things that affect your life? All your problems. Fucking hell. This size paper, 4 pages of it. 4 flip charts. Everybody's going, this. There were things on there like, well, my contract with work. There were things like my boss is an arsehole. There were things like in our work, there's many different ethnicities of African, and we don't all get on. Nigerian, South Africans don't particularly like the Zimbabweans because they take all the work because they're prepared to work, and all these stories. And there were things like my daughter's a prostitute, my daughter's on crystal meth. I'm housing my nephew from gangsters and the police. I'm hiding him away. I'm scared that they're coming to get him. My son was murdered. We had all these stories. It was like, I looked at this, all these people, these were a sea of black faces. And a couple of us and Jill at the front, Jen and I and Jill at the front, these whiteies at the front, like, And I looked at I'm from Cumbria. I looked at this list of problems and I could identify with very few of them. And I looked at this list of problems and my initial thought was, fuck, I'm out of my depth here. I know nothing about any of these problems. Why the hell did you ask them for their problems, you dickhead? And I stood there and I was like, shit, I've got 3 days. Oh, you idiot. We started to speak. On day 2, no, the last day, we talked like what we're talking now. And on day 3, we went back. I said, do you mind if we go back through this list? Because I'd noticed that some of these problems had lines drawn through them. People had come up and they'd drawn a line through their problem. And so I went round and was like, whose was this one? That was mine. You've drawn a line through it. Yeah, I've come up with a solution for that. Okay, cool. Whose was this one? Oh, that's ours. Yeah, put a line through that. That's sorted. Whose is this one? Oh, we've had a conversation around that. We think we found a solution to that. Can we put a line through it? Yeah, put a line through it. It's done. We'll deal with it. It's fine. I couldn't believe my eyes when I put a line through the very last problem of 4 pages of problems, some of the hardest looking problems. And it was in that moment where I really, truly saw that the mind is where to start to solve the problems of the world, to solve the problems personally, to solve the problems of the world. But it's not through focusing on the problem. We'll come to this experiment now. It's not through focusing on the problem. It's about gaining understanding into the nature of life. Because when you gain understanding into the nature of life, you gain understanding into the nature of a problem. A problem is a manifestation of life. The problem doesn't manifest life. The life manifests the illusion of a problem. So if I'm going to pick on 3 people, I'm going to pick on Doran. Grab the first thing at hand, my friend. First thing, not the porn magazine. Anything. Just pick up anything.
Pick up anything.
Yeah, pick up anything. Hey, you're in your car, you must have something handy. Just pick it up, anything. And Sash, pick up first thing you can see. All right. Doran, what you've picked up, hold it up. Talk to me about that, mate. Talk to us about it. Say whatever comes into mind.
Well, TV remote that's got buttons on, and yeah, you can change the volume, channel, display, the aspects of the display, and you can mute it. And yeah.
Keep going. Don't stop there. What else about the remote?
There's various sources, like you can watch movies from a USB stick.
What's a posh TV?
Yeah, I don't know, what do you want me to say?
Were you thinking about that remote control before you picked it up?
Sorry?
Were you thinking about that remote control before you picked it up?
No.
Okay. Kate, what you picked up, love? You're muted, love.
Okay. So I've got an Apple Core.
Talk to us about the Apple Core, love.
I've just eaten it. It's got, I can see the pips inside. It's got little holes in. It's got teeth marks around it, and it's got it's quite sticky. It was probably quite a juicy apple, it was. And it's got this is where it would have been connected to the tree. and it's got it was a sort of reddy, greeny, mottled, but it's a different colour in the inside, and bits of it are coming off in my hands, falling down the car. And you want me to keep going?
You can stop there. That's beautiful. Sash, talk to us about your cat.
This is Tiger Lily, also known as Tiggy, Tiggy Wiggy Woo Woo, and Mrs. Woogie. She's 5 years old. She's a Seal Point Siamese, and she's terrified of everything except me and Mikey. Everything is terrifying for her except for me and Mikey, who she loves to death. She hates Rusty.
She does.
And she what else can I say about her? She's a Seal Point Siamese. She's a very posh cat and very expensive. Though we got her quite cheap because she's got short legs, so she couldn't be a breeding cat. Her legs are too short to breed, so she's Dad, but we don't tell her that. Don't tell her that. Her dad's Siamese.
You get it from the original factory shop?
We got her right. Yeah, went all the way to Cornwall for this cat because she was related to my cat Chipper, who I loved like a child. So I wanted to get a cat that was related to Chipper. So I went all the way to Cornwall to get her, and she turned out to be a dud. But we love her anyway.
Cool. Thank you so much. Sash, were you thinking about the cat before you picked her up?
No, not until you said that.
Sash, when you're talking about the cat,
yeah,
is there anything else? What else are you aware of when you're talking about the cat or thinking about the cat?
What else am I aware of? What I feel for the cat.
Okay, so you're aware of the cat.
Mm.
Okay, when you're talking about your apple core, what else are you aware of?
Nothing. I'm just looking at the apple core.
Doran, when you're talking about your remote control, what else were you aware of whilst you're focusing on the remote control?
What more must I explain to people about how remote control looks or works?
Say that again, mate.
What more can I explain to people about a remote control and how it works and what its function is?
Yeah, there you go. So when we are focused on the remote control, that becomes our experience. And our experience, wherever we focus this consciousness stuff, the mind goes to work. So Doran, were you thinking about the remote control before you picked it up? No, but the moment I pick up the remote control, or in this case a phone, the moment I focus my attention upon it, my mind instantly goes to work, and without effort, without any effort, it starts to think about the remote control. It starts to tell a story about the remote control. Okay, the moment she picks up her apple core, focuses her attention upon the apple core, the mind goes to work on it and it brings thoughts. And the same with the cat. The moment Sash picks up the cat, the mind starts to focus her consciousness upon the cat. The mind starts to think about the cat. This is a beautiful system that is at play. Okay, this is what is happening all the time. Wherever we focus attention, the mind thinks. Try it. Try it for yourself. Pick up or whatever the hell you want. At some point, just try it. And you will realize that wherever you focus your attention, your mind will think. Okay, now that is not a broken system. That is not a damaged system. That is an entirely up and running functional system for every single being on the planet. That's just the way it works. Wherever consciousness goes, the mind thinks, or experience flows. Not broken. Now imagine when we focus all this attention on all our problems. What does the mind do? It goes to work on thinking about the problem. It goes to work on telling a story about the problem. It's this, it's that. Oh, it goes looking for what's this and what's that. And the mind starts, the more we focus our attention upon the problem, the more the mind thinks about the problem, the more the problem is within our experience, the longer it looks like we actually have the problem. And all it is the mind thinking. That's the only thing that's actually going on. This is why looking at the problem, expecting it to go away, is like looking at the remote control and expecting us not to think about the remote control, or looking at the apple core, wherever we're focusing on, I really want this problem to go away. I really want this problem to go away. I really want to not see this problem anymore. I don't want to see this problem anymore. I don't want to see it. I don't want to see. Why can I not see this problem? It's like when we worked in the township. When people stop staring at the problem, their mind figures it out. As long as we're staring at the problem, what we believe to be the problem, we're keeping it alive. It's like staring at the apple core. It's like staring at the cat. It's like staring at the remote control. The mind is going to think about whatever we focus the attention on. There's a problem in my relationship. I'm going to keep looking at it. I'm going to keep looking at it, expecting it to go away. Why does it not go away? Like Lee and Lou said, we kept on trying to fix this problem. We kept on looking at this problem. It's what psychology teaches people to do. Let's go looking at all your problems, expecting them to go away. As long as we're staring hell-bent on trying to fix ourselves, we will never do it. Because it's only an illusion that we were broken in the first place. There is only the illusion of a problem. Problems don't exist in the world. Problems are a perspective of mind. You know, Donald Trump said he wanted to buy Greenland a couple of years ago. Why? Because the ice sheet's melting. To many around the world, terrible thing. Ice sheet melting. To Donald Trump, beautiful opportunity. Great. Go on. Let's go and get some heaters on Greenland. Let's go and light some fires. Let's get this ice sheet off, then we can get mining. Beautiful opportunity. In his perspective, that's a really beautiful thing. To many people, it's a terrible thing. You see that it is all a perspective of mind. Reality, our reality is a perspective of our mind and how we believe and how we think. So looking at the beliefs and thoughts is never going to get us anywhere. We must start to understand the nature of reality. Understand it is created from belief and thought. Understand the nature of reality is it's a conscious state thinking. And it appears true to us. It appears real to us. It's real. It looks it.
One of the ladies on the course, her problem was a slightly lighter one, and it was that her brother annoyed her so much, and she said he's like a coconut. Yeah. He's black on the outside and white on the inside. She goes, and he wears sandals with socks, and we're like, okay.
No self-respecting white man does that.
He gives my mum a kiss on the cheek when he leaves. And she just went on and on about this brother was the biggest problem, and we're like, cool. So that was on the board, and by the end of the 3 days, and she was also the one that said, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. She's 33 years old, but she said she suddenly started seeing her brother differently. Like, it wasn't a problem that her brother was different from her. It wasn't a problem that her brother wasn't behaving how she thought a black man should behave. She saw the role of her mind in her experience. And she said, now I love my brother. And it was like, we never at one point throughout the 3 days spoke about her needing to accept her brother as he is.
Or prostitution or crystal meth.
Yeah, any of those problems. We didn't speak to any of the problems that existed. But when people's minds settle down, they find a solution or they come to peace. Like the amount of people that have said they found forgiveness for what happened in their life, or forgave someone that they'd said, I will never forgive you. And then they found forgiveness. We didn't speak to people about you should forgive, because otherwise it's just a good idea. And it could be so easy to look at someone else that seems to have the same, they will have the answer for us. But the answers come from our quiet mind. The answer comes from within ourselves. And we can only ever be guides, like any of us in life. We can guide people. And I remember hearing George Pransky speak once, and he said, it's almost like all ships rise with the tide. And it could be a problem looking at a boat that's in the sand thinking, how on earth am I going to move that? But he described it as, well, as the tide comes in, the boat will rise. You can move it. If we start to understand that what the world needs is to raise a level of conscious state, raise a level of understanding, awareness, and then with that comes the change, comes what we do in the world. And I think it can be so easy to just be like, yeah, no, I'll listen to that stuff about consciousness and thought and these powers. Yeah, that all sounds great, but sort my problem out first, and then I'll listen. But it doesn't work that way around. Problems exist within our mind. What seems like a problem to me sometimes is not a problem to you, and vice versa. And we'll all have experiences of that. Like sometimes you just look at me like, why on earth would you care about that? But to me, it's a big problem. Until my mind changes and suddenly it isn't a problem anymore. Like the power exists within. And within our mind,
experience that.
Within our mind is the opportunity to think again. And like I know that sometimes if there's something I really want to have insight over, I might just say, I'd love to see something new about this, and then leave it alone. It's like when you can't remember somebody's name and you're like trying and you just cannot remember it. When you're minding your own business, at some point it pops in and you're like, oh God, yeah. It is that simple, and it's counterintuitive to begin with, because we're taught to focus on the problem and try and find the solution. But whenever, like I know when this is taught in business, they do it over 5 days, because often in the business trainings that, like the one that I filmed, people had been voluntold to be there. So for the first few days, their minds were so busy they couldn't hear. And by the end of the few days, the 5 days, you'd see people just get so quiet and manage to sort things out within their business that they'd maybe been arguing over for 6 months, a year, would get sorted in one meeting. The solution existed all along, but everyone was focused on the problem. Everyone was stuck in ego. And it works on small things and it works on big things, because there isn't the small and big perspectives of mind. And I know that I haven't got answers for anyone else's life. I can't fix anyone else's problems. But I do know that as people start to understand this, they sort their own lives out. Mm-hmm. They're the expert in their life, not me, not Dave. And it seems too simple that there could be one understanding that, as realised, sorts everything out.
Sort the whole world out.
It's almost like you see it again and again. I mentioned yesterday with Godel and his charity. We're like, wow, some of the things that these people have been through, like, how are they gonna, I don't know, it was almost like, God, is this message, I don't know, I doubted it for a moment. But then you hear Godel speak and you hear some of the people from his charity and what they heard and learned, and then what they feel is possible in their life now. There isn't the limitation. And then we got to meet one guy who had come from quite a violent township in Durban. And he said he just had this thought as a kid, I don't want to live like this. And he studied at school, his friends completely took the piss out of him, or were always trying to get him to misbehave. And then he got this job in a company and was in Johannesburg, and he loved it. And he was all about trying to inspire youth within townships to fulfill your dreams. You're not limited by where you're born. You're not limited you're not limited of who you have been, how you have behaved. We're taught that change takes time. Oh, we've been like this for this long, so it's going to take a long time for me to change. Change can happen in a moment. And it happens in a moment all the time. We're always changing. That is the nature of our mind. But then we can bring something back to mind. Like you'll say often, if you've had like a shitty day, you're like, oh, I've been feeling shit and tired for weeks. And it's like it's been around forever, because that's all that exists for you in that moment. But it's like, you were saying yesterday how grateful you were for life and that you love the idea of this. And you see how our mind brings it to life, and things can get blown out of proportion. And I think you just take it less and less seriously.
I remember you walking up the road to your mum and dad's, and you said, "Why is it?" What was it you said? Why is it?
Well, no, it's when he'd been literally like the biggest storm all day, and then the sun had come out and it was blue sky, sunset, everything was glistening. I was like, God, like you never would have thought all day that we would be able to walk Rust in the sun tonight. Like it just seemed like this storm was never going to pass.
Howling it down.
I was like, God, that's like your experience. Like when you're in the midst of a storm, it feels like that's all there is and it's never going to pass. And I'm like, why is that or something? And you're like, because that's all that exists. Because there is only this moment. That is all that exists. So we can't imagine anything else because that is the moment. That is what's here.
Yeah, it's like, and I think that this is a really important point. It's like, I'm not going to do that. I might do it some other point. This is how we kind of treat life. We kind of go, can you see that? Yeah, cool. Can you see that? So it says past, future, now. This is how we kind of treat life. This is how we look at life in general. That there is this three aspects to life. There is something that we call the past. What is the past? It's everything that we have experienced previously. What is the future? It's everything we're going to experience. And then there's this now. Like, so people talk about the now. Books written about the now. You know, all the sages and prophets from the past have talked about the now. All the wise people have talked about the now. We don't live there the majority of the time. We're time-traveling beings. We travel through time in our mind continuously. We go and revisit last week. What I said, what I did. Ooh, what I did when I smashed that thing up. Oh, I'll go and revisit that. Because somewhere in the revisiting of last week, there is the answer. No, there isn't. No, there isn't. Last week's gone. This morning's gone. This is all memories. So what is the past? Probably spelled it wrong. Crap at spelling. Past is memories. It's all the past is. You know, the past doesn't really exist. It never has. The past has never, ever, 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 ever existed. There has never been a past. It's quite a difficult one for us to get our heads around. It took me a while. There's never been a past. About castles, star bones and fossils. Do you mean there's never been a past? There's never been a past. The past doesn't exist. The past is an illusion of thought. The past is an illusion of mind. It is what we call memory. It's only because of memory is it possible that we could consider that outside of the now actually existed or exists. It's only because of thought. So where does the past truly exist? Does it exist anywhere on the face of planet Earth? Can we jump on a bus and drive to tomorrow, or fly to next week? Or can we get on a boat and sail back to last week? Or can we jump on a high-speed train and go back to a month ago? No, of course we can't. We know that. That's stupid. Okay, well, let's look at the future then. Where's the future? Can't see it anywhere. Does the future really exist, or is it ultimately imagination? Are we back to thought again? Are we back to this thought stuff? So if the future is imagination, So the future and past are thought. They don't ultimately exist outside of our mind. That leaves the last spot, the now. We often do this. Yeah, which is also thought. You know, this is thought-created experience in this moment. So we're still on thought. You know, we're not separating any of this. But we are coming to understand that now is the only time we are ever experiencing. It's now. This is it. Now. That's gone. That's gone now. It's gone forever and ever and ever. It doesn't exist anymore. It doesn't exist anywhere on the face of planet Earth. It's gone. Gone. Ever and ever, ever. Have we frozen? Can somebody just let me know? Okay. That clap has gone forever. We can never, ever, ever see it again. It's gone. But we can revisit it in the mind. We know it happened. The past only exists in the mind. The past is a thought now. All of it, the entirety of it. It's not who we are. It's an event of thought. Time doesn't, we are not moving through time. Thought does not exist in time. Thought does not exist in time. Time exists in thought. Time is a thought. It's not a thing. It's not real. The only time there ever is the moment. Forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. There is only ever the now. It is only because of thought that we have the illusion of the past and the illusion of the future. Neither exist. They never have, and they never, ever, 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 ever will. It will always be now. We live in a perpetual now. This is vital to start to understand. So much of our fear is based, or should I say, all fear is based in imagination. Frozen, can we back? Whatever that fear is. Jealousy, envy, anger, hatred, depression, anxiety. It's all based in the idea that the future somehow exists or might exist. The future will never exist because there's only now. We just get lost in time travel within our mind. We get stuck in the past. People get stuck in the past. They keep looking at the past. Keep looking at the past, expecting the now to change. No, as long as you're looking at the past, that is your now. That is your now. That is your experience in the moment. But it creates the illusion as though the past is actually creating the experience. It creates what happened in the past is creating the now. No. Thought, consciousness is the now. The only thing is we're thinking about the past, which is creating the illusion of the past affecting us now. The past cannot affect us outside of a thought. It's all a thought. The whole game of life is thought. The future is thought. The past is thought. Now is all thought.
I remember being at a talk, and actually the lady is listening today who asked it. Someone was speaking about this. It was Aaron Turner was speaking about this at the Tikkun Center, probably like 10 years ago or something. And someone put their hand up, and this lady asked, "But I'm a policewoman, and I've seen some horrendous things. I have to attend some horrendous things. Are you saying that's just thought, that it didn't happen? It's awful, and I keep reliving it." And what Aaron said was, it happened once, and then you're reliving it in your mind again and again and again and again, trying to find peace, and it really, like, the whole room kind of went quiet, because you see how we're not saying things don't happen. We're not saying that life doesn't happen and that we don't experience loss and all of those things. Like, please don't think that we're saying that.
No, certainly not.
But it happens once, and then we relive it and we relive it and we relive it, and we don't sometimes realize that we don't have to do that. And I know that
Hey.
Hello,
Hi, Jen. Can I ask, so, hang on, I'm just going to,
Who's this?
it's Jackie, I think.
Jack.
Hey up, Jack.
Hello, love.
Yeah, oh, that's a different one. Hey up, love.
Hi. So, but if somebody's had, you know, because a lot of this stuff, you know, I've listened to a lot of Gabor Mate, and he talks about a lot of stuff that's gone on in your childhood, and that's kind of where, you know, that's where the trauma, it's about trauma being stuck, you know, like releasing trauma and things. Seeing something like this policewoman seeing something, and I know that's traumatic enough, but if it's happened to you, how do you possibly not, how do you just let that be? How do you find freedom in your mind from something that's been, you know, because these are external things. When you're a kid, things happen that are out of your control. They are external things. It's not something that's happened from within. If you've been abused or beaten or neglected or abandoned, or all these awful things that stick with kids that do, because I've seen it played out as well. I've seen it in lots of ways. How, you know, you talk about it as if it's, and I'm not, you know, as if it's such a simple thing. Like you said, it's not, it's a simple thing. You're talking about these 3 principles, but how do you break from that cycle? How do you get out of not, you know, your cells hold trauma? That's not a thought. That is science.
It's okay. What is trauma, Jack? Can you tell me what trauma is?
Trauma, I would say, is a stuckness, like you're right, feeling that's, but I think that your body holds that of some event that's happened in your life.
So when you experience a trauma, for the entirety of your existence, do you experience that feeling?
I think sometimes your body can.
Do you experience it as a reality for the rest of your life? Do you get stuck in one feeling for the rest of your life?
No, because everything changes. You can't.
All right, let's look at that point. Because people have not understood the nature of mind, we have gone through we've tried to come up with all different theories as to why people are like they are. So, I mean, in the past, we've drilled people in their heads to release spirits. We've done bloodletting.
Yeah.
We medicate people. Okay. We've put people in psychiatric wards. We've electric shocked people. We've done all kinds of things because before we understand the nature of mind, we go looking for all these reasons why people are like they are. Now, if it was true that a trauma that trauma was something outside of mind, outside of a thought, it would have to be an ever-present reality. But the fact that it comes and goes, it's like, why is it? We often talk about the brain, for example. I talked a bit about this yesterday, how we talk about the brain, and we look to the brain for the reason why people are like they are. The brain is an organ. Without consciousness, when consciousness leaves the brain is of zero value. It doesn't do anything. Without consciousness, there is no awareness. The brain can't function without consciousness. It does nothing. It just sits there idle until it eventually, because there is not this life force enlivening it, this consciousness, it will just eventually go back to nothing again and go back into the hole, same place where it was born. So it requires consciousness for there to be the experience of trauma. It requires consciousness for there to be the experience of life. You take away consciousness, there is zero trauma because there's nothing there to experience it. You take away consciousness, there is nothing there to experience life. But the fact that an individual can experience a trauma.
I was just going to say, Tanya's happy to speak about it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, cool. Because the body can, because we do experience trauma throughout our lives. There won't be a single person on this screen that I'm looking at through in one way or another hasn't gone through some form of trauma. Trauma is ultimately an experience that we really do not like. That's what trauma is. It's a feeling state that we really do dislike. But we go looking for reasons as to why it exists, why it perpetuates, why it continues. Now, it's quite interesting, when I asked you, do you experience trauma, or does somebody experience trauma for the rest of their life in exactly the same way? And you said no. And I think everybody can relate to this. No, because it changes, it comes and goes. Now, if trauma was really a physical thing like an illness, or a thing that's fixed in the body like an illness, it wouldn't be able to change, it would just be illness. But the fact that it comes and goes suggests something, that there is something changing within ourselves continuously. And this is the thing where I would like people to consider. This is what I'd like people to consider. There is no trauma without consciousness, because there's nothing there to experience it. There is no trauma without memory. It is required for us to remember the trauma. Memory is thought, a past event that we then remember now. People come out of all kinds of traumas through starting to wake up to how reality is ultimately experienced, how it's created. People come out of all kinds of traumas. People realize, and it's not that the past event has changed. The past event was done and dusted. It did it. It happened. It's not saying it didn't happen. It happened in a now. But what we have now is a memory that remembers it. And when it remembers it, it experiences it full-blown, full-on technicolor, as though it's happening now. This is the nature of thought. It creates a reality. Just like when we're dreaming, it feels so real and vivid. This is the same thing creating the dream when we're asleep as when we are awake. There is no two modalities. There is no duality of operation. There's a singular event creating an infinite amount of experiences. So when it comes to trauma, if you really can consider it, just consider it, you're entitled to hold on to, people are entitled to believe whatever they wish. It's quite difficult for a lot of people to, when they're well read as well, to put aside what they think they already know, because they think they know something. And the only thing that I truly know is genuinely that I know absolutely fucking nothing about any of this stuff. But I do know that reality is a state of consciousness, and it is a state of consciousness that all beings are. And the experience we experience in any given moment is a generation of our mind. And when we start to wake up to that, we start to see that there is no exceptions to it. All moments, good or bad, what appear to be good or bad, because ultimately they're neither good nor bad, they are just what is. And it's our perception of perhaps how we've been brought up, or what we believe, or how we perceive the world as to whether it was a good event or a bad event, a tragic event or a joyous event. And so you see, ultimately, trauma is an event that happened, that we have the perspective on that it wasn't good, that we remember. That's what PTSD is. There's a lot of people who come across this with PTSD and realize, oh, the trauma is not held in me now, it's only held in me when I think it. Perhaps that thought isn't a conscious thought, perhaps it's a thought that is not visible to the intellect, but it is all thought. There is no way of experiencing trauma without the knowledge of the trauma taking place. Impossible. You could not re-experience it without knowledge. What is knowledge? Knowledge is thought.
But what about, because if the body and the mind are the same, aren't they? They work simultaneously. So, you know, people with really deep ingrained trauma, and I'm not, you know, I'm talking about, I don't think this is me, but, you know, this is, you know, people that have facial tics, or kind of, it plays out in their body. It's not from a thought. They're not thinking of something all the time. You can't think of something all the time.
There's this incredible documentary which Lisa watched with me, and it's two twins, and one of them had an accident and they lost all of their memory, so nothing before the accident could they remember. He had an identical twin brother, and he lived for a few years, and his brother was basically his memory, and he filled him in, and he beautiful life. And one of the parents died, and they went to clean out the house, and I think they found like a photograph that had been ripped, and they found some stuff, and the twin brother that had his memory had to reveal to the brother who'd lost his memory that actually he'd made up the past. They actually had severe abuse as children. They had the most traumatic upbringing, but he didn't want his brother to have to experience that, so he made up this beautiful life. So the parents who had been abusive to him, he'd gone and had this beautiful relationship with them because he didn't know any different. He lost his memory of all of that, so he got to experience them fresh, and they had this time together. And it was, I mean, the documentary is really sad because the brother that lost his memory then wouldn't forgive his brother for lying to him, and it's this whole thing. But it was such a powerful moment because without memory, without the memory of the experience, he couldn't feel the trauma. And he didn't see his family in the way that they were the ones that put him through that trauma. And I thought, what a telling thing that without thought, without the consciousness of something happening, we can't experience it. And I think we're always trying to find correlations and reasons, and it feels like fundamentally this is how people do overcome things. This is how people do start to have different perspectives on things, start to find forgiveness. And I think that's why I love the fact that Tanya was actually on, and she could share a little bit about that moment on the training, because Tanya's the one who's the police lady. And she said she's happy to share with us a bit about her experience. If she's still...
Yeah, Tom.
On the screen, right.
There you are.
Hey, love.
Hi.
Hey, love.
Hi, guys.
Hey, Steve.
Hi, Steve.
we're just out driving at the moment, listening to you. But I thought I was pleased to hear that you were talking about my story, and it just reminded me how profound that insight was. As you said, Jenny, I'd been in the police for a number of years, and had not long left the police when I went to the talk that Aaron Turner was doing. And as you said, he was talking about dreams not being real. And I just couldn't grasp how that worked the same for me when I'd had real experiences. And it was just such a huge impact on me to realise that those events only ever happened to me once, and that every time I got a flashback from it, it was me creating that. And in that moment that the flashbacks happened, I had the choice. I don't know if this is the right way to put it. I had a choice as to whether or not to go somewhere with that initial visual memory that popped up. And once I realized that it was me that was creating everything that happened after that, it didn't happen again.
Thank you, love.
The title today was True Freedom Resides Within. And I think what we've spoken about is finding that space of freedom within yourself.
That's right. Thank you so much, Tanya. You know, this is we have looked for reason for why people are like they are. And because the nature of consciousness is such a abstract concept to the mind, which is itself consciousness, because consciousness cannot comprehend itself, what it's done is it's gone in search within the external, and the body is the external. It's the external expression of mind. But the physical form cannot give birth to non-physical. Creation cannot give birth to creator. This only ever works in one direction. Formlessness creates form. Formlessness creates form. Formlessness creates form. Formlessness creates form. The form will go back into formlessness. That's death. That's destruction. That's what happens to everything that comes into physical being. But the form cannot give birth to the formlessness. All form is built from formlessness. All form is built from energy. Nothing comes before something. But fundamentally, something and nothing are exactly the same thing. Everything is made from energy, which is ultimately nothing but everything. Very, very, this is one of them, you speak about this in a second, the Aristotle way.
Well, it's lunch.
Yeah.
I'll do it after lunch.
But we go looking to the physical form for why we experience what we experience. And Jackie mentioned facial tics. I mean, there's people on this call who've known me for a lot of years, and I used to have severe facial tics.
I didn't know.
I had severe facial tics. I used to get the piss ripped out of me at school. Like really blinky and twitches all over the spot. And like at times of severe stress, my heart was under chronic strain. I remember having to abseil out of a tree one day because I was dying and I felt like I was having a heart attack. And I suffered physically an awful lot. And it was stress. It was stress. Stress kills people. Stress makes people ill. Stress can stop somebody's heart like that. It'll give them a heart attack. What is stress? Stress is thought. Stress is a very busy, active mind. It's a mind that has so much going on inside it. That's what stress is. It's a busy. Stress is simply a busy mind. That's all it is. It's a lot of thinking going on within a mind. That's all stress is. All these perceptions taking place. And I remember when I woke up to the nature of this point, my facial tics stopped. I still get one every now and again, but nothing like what I used to. My facial tics stopped. My facial tics were thoughts. They were reflections of thoughts. They were goings on in my mind that I wasn't aware of. But that realizing, that touching that space that exists at the heart of all being changed my ego. It killed my ego. It killed who I thought I was. It showed me that I was completely and utterly made up inside my mind. I made me up. I made up the idea of Dave. All made up. It's all thought. Every single action that takes place within my body is a conscious action. Consciousness just is. And when the mind changes, the body changes. The stress that I experienced died, love took its place, and it cleansed my body. My body felt better. It worked better. It was more healthy. But it wasn't something I found through trying to make sense of the external world. It was realizing the external world is something that takes place within my mind as a perception of it. In my reality.
I think also this is almost like a starting point. If we can see this as foundational, as true, and then we get to go and experience and try things. Like, I had a back trouble for ages, and I tried osteopaths, and I tried stretching, and I tried this, and I tried that, and eventually I went and saw a friend who does body stress release. And she hardly does anything, it seems. And I had this, like, she was, oh, some people have a bit of reaction to this. And I was thinking, yeah, no, not, I wouldn't. Sort of thing my sister would have a reaction to. She'd have. And then I did. The next day I had a massive emotional breakdown and cried, and it started to release something in my back. And I think the only thing I come back to is I don't know I don't know anything about life, but I do understand that this is something foundational and true and reliable that I can go back to, that this power of thought is so much bigger than anything I can comprehend.
Absolutely.
And that they say, you know, if someone's under anaesthetic, you could like lift their leg up and do all these sort of stretches that they'd never be able to do if they weren't under anaesthetic. It's not to say they're not going to ache when they wake up, but they can move the body in all kinds of ways. Like the stuff I can't do in yoga, apparently under anaesthetic, my body could do. So you have to see that there's this power of thought and consciousness stuff that almost holds it all together, that is the foundation of it. And I don't begin to say that I'm an expert or I understand, but I think the more that we can see that limitless potential within our mind, that freedom to think again and not be stuck on a belief. Because as soon as we believe something, we hold it in place and we can't see anything else. So the only thing that I encourage people to do is like just sometimes step back from your belief and see if there's anything else.
I'm interested in that you said about your back, because I suffer from back ache quite a lot, which is why I got into yoga. But you didn't relieve it from unhooking from stressful thoughts. You did it by going for somebody who's manipulated your body, and that's released something within your body. No?
Well, yeah, it's like it's a bit like Bowen, I think. I don't really understand it. But
that's what I'm saying. It's like I'm confused or intrigued, I don't know, more that between the link between body and mind, and which does come first, or, you know, because it's like one's affecting the other, and it's not that you've changed a thought to ease their tension. Something's moved in your body that's then eased your thoughts, that's then eased your body again.
Have you ever had pain? Of course you have pain.
Yeah, I'm being a pain now.
I'm being bad back, for example. Bad back, for example. And we'll take a break in a minute.
Yeah.
Say we've got a bad back, and we happen to be sitting down watching a film, and we get immersed in the film. The experience of pain disappears. As consciousness falls off the pain, we are no longer in the experience of that pain. We're now in the experience of whatever we're thinking about the film, whatever we're dreaming about the film.
I think that would depend on the pain.
Well, have a look. You'll start to realize, as it's like when we pick up the remote control, the Apple Car, the cat. If we focus on the pain, yet the pain becomes so severe. But as our attention gets drawn away from the pain, we forget about the pain. And we're now in the experience of something else, because our mind is now generating the experience of something else. Just have a look. Don't take our word for it. Don't take anybody's word for it, but just become aware, because the only thing we're asking people to do is to become aware. We're not asking people to do anything. We're not asking people to, we don't sit ourselves as any kind of experts. The only thing that we truly know, and I say this time and time again, the only thing that I truly know is that reality is an illusion of mind. Reality appears to us as the mind generates, as it thinks. And thought is not what we think it is. You cannot know thought. You cannot know thought. You cannot know what thought is. To know thought is to know God. It's the creator. You cannot know God. It's too big. To know is to conceptualize. To conceptualize is to create an illusion of knowing. Which is why all the wise people of the times have gone, I know I'm wise because I know nothing. It's all it's the eating of the tree of knowledge from the Bible. That eating in the Garden of Eden, the eating of the tree of knowledge is the original sin, because the moment we think we know something, we create an illusion of separation. I'm right, I'm wrong, whatever it is. We create ego and we hold on to it because we want to be right. But it's knowledge, it's the knowledge that we hold on to that we are reluctant to let go of. That is the thing that keeps us stuck. It's only when the mind gets quiet and it stops thinking it knows everything does it awaken to itself. And when it awakens to itself, it will realize that all life is a psychological experience. Psychological sounds scientific. Spiritual, it's the same thing. The psyche and soul are one and the same. And when we start to realize that this is all a behind the scenes going on, a spiritual, psychological, whatever, behind the scenes going on, that is creating all experience, no exceptions. No, it creates this experience, but not pain. No, not pain, not trauma. No, those are two very different things. When an individual can come back together and realize that love and fear are exactly the same thing. That solid, that creation and creator are the same thing in different disguises. Ultimately, all there is consciousness expressing itself. Then they'll find that freedom. Because they will see how reality works. They will understand what life is. They'll understand that there is no past and future. There is only the ever-present now. And we only ever have the experience of now. If we're thinking about the past, that is our experience now. If we're worrying about the future, that is our experience now. It's only ever now. It's the only thing. It's the only time we ever get to experience anything, even the past and future. They're all expressions of mind now. And when we start to wake up to this, you start to see it within other people. You start to see how they're working. Oh, they're different. I don't agree with them because they think differently to me. All right. Well, that's how this reality stuff works. Everybody is free to think however they wish, whatever they wish. Their mind is always free. Everybody's mind is totally free to think anything. It's even free to believe that it cannot. That's how free it is. It is even free to believe it doesn't have free will. People will go, there is no free will, Dave. There's only God's will. But it's interesting that we make the duality between us and God, that we separate ourselves from source. We are source. There is no separation. Whatever God's will is your will. Whatever God's will is my will. Total freedom. The thing that stagnates it is the moment it holds on to ideas and concepts. Because it's not that. That's not where freedom's found, through holding on to what we believe. Thinking that somehow it's keeping us safe. It's not keeping us safe. It's holding us prisoner. Very quickly, my mother came up with this metaphor. And I loved it. She said, before coming across this, it was like she was stood in a tunnel. She said she was born into this infinite field, born into infinite possibility. And then throughout time, after people told her things and she adopted what people said, she took it on, she believed it without question. Before she knew it, she'd created a tunnel around herself, a metaphorical tunnel. And she said, and all I could see down was this tunnel. She said, and I loved her description, she said, I became narrow-minded and tunnel-visioned. Couldn't see anybody else's point of view. Couldn't see anything possible outside of what she already knew. She became narrow-minded and tunnel-visioned. And she said, but after, it took her a while to start listening as well, because I changed like that. She thought I was mental. But after a while, Lise got interested. And because Lise got interested and went, yeah, Mum, there's something in this. Mum got interested. And this was one of Mum's first descriptions I ever heard her say, and I love it, and I'm using it now because I still love it. It's such a beautiful description. She was narrow-minded and tunnel-visioned. She said, but as she started to listen to this, not listen to it through judgment, she just listened to it like she was just listening what's being said. She said that in her own way, what happened was the bricks of these tunnels started to fall down. She said, all of a sudden, she said, this tunnel started to disintegrate from around her, this tunnel which she actually thought kept her safe. Safe from what? This tunnel that she thought kept her safe was ultimately keeping her prisoner. And as she started to get quiet, the beliefs that she carried, she was able to question. Some of them she didn't even have to question. Some of them just vanished forever. Bang, gone, evaporated. Some of them became apparent and she got to think about them again. She said, but over time, she said this tunnel collapsed, started to collapse. She said there's still the odd bricks, still some bricks ligging about. She said, but I see more of the infinite now. I see more of the infinite possibility now. And I think that's a really beautiful metaphor for this. As people start to wake up, stop looking at the external world for why they feel like they do. Stop blaming it on external circumstances. When I'm talking about external, I'm talking about the future and the past as well. These are both outside of truth. Now is truth. The external world does not give us our experiences. Consciousness is awareness, awareness is experience, and experience is reality. Experience is something that takes place from within our being, and it is dreamt as a reality, our reality. It is thought. And when somebody joins all the dots and realizes, oh, all the dots, when I join all the dots, it creates this singular thing, this singular event that's happening all over the face of the planet. Everybody is that, doing exactly the same thing, but dreaming in a different way. They will start to realize that it is all a singular event. It's all a singular thing. And when they start to wake up to that, they start to wake up to truth. And when we start, there's that saying in the Bible, truth will set you free. Truth is not a belief. That's a belief. Truth is the force that allows beliefs to come into being. Everybody is made of truth. Truth is everything in disguise. It just is. It just is. I can't explain why. Well, let's take a break. Sorry.
We've run over a bit, so if we come back at 2:15, and then we'll have time for questions, observations, reflections, and then at 3:30 we've got Dick and Bettinger, which is an amazing day to finish, amazing way to finish off this afternoon. I know many of you on here know Dickon, and yeah, he's fantastic.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.